Welcome to the 2023 Suspension Rate Indicator presentation from the Accountability Development and Policy Analysis Unit here at the California Department of Education. My name is Katrina Gonzalez, and I will be co-presenting with Dr. Irit Winston. Today's session will be covering a short top-level review of the dashboard and a more in-depth review of the suspension rate indicator. For the 2023 dashboard, the California Department of Education is releasing a series of on-demand sessions, which will be short, accessible videos, which can be accessed anytime and will cover each of the state indicators in more detail, plus some other accountability information. Today's agenda includes an overview of the California School Dashboard, which will be referred to as the dashboard from here on out. Then we will cover all things suspension indicator, followed by the differences between DataQuest and the dashboard, a few frequently asked questions, general rules about the dashboard, and finally, how to go about contacting or reaching us with any and all of your dashboard questions. First, we will start with an overview of the dashboard. The California Dashboard is an online tool designed to help communities across the state access important information about kindergarten through 12th grade. The dashboard reports how districts and schools are performing on multiple state and local measures that make up California's accountability system. A big question that may be on your mind is, what can I expect from the 2023 dashboard? Thankfully, 2022 was a big year of changes, and 2023 will be different, but most of it will be pretty familiar. The dashboard will still report local indicators and state indicators. The big change will be that the state indicators return to colors. The dashboard displays performance through 6 state measures. They are academic performance, which includes measures for both English Language Arts and Literacy, or ELA, and mathematics, English learner progress, chronic absenteeism, graduation rate, suspension rate, and college/career measures. The college/career measure is reported as a status-only indicator on the 2023 dashboard. But how do these measures get a color? The measure of performance for LEAs, schools, and student groups on the dashboard is done by looking at 2 years of data. Current year data equals status. A comparison between the current and prior year's data equals change. It's the combination of status and change that determines color performance on the dashboard and is designated by receiving one of 5 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, or blue, with red at the lowest performance level to blue at the highest performance level. For the next section, I'll pass it over to Irit. Irit, take it away.
Thank you, Katrina. Let's go through the details of the suspension rate indicator. The suspension rate indicator represents the percent of students who have been suspended. We'll start out this section by answering the question, what is the suspension rate formula? In the numerator, we have the number of students who have been suspended at least 1 full day. The denominator in the number is the number of students who were enrolled for at least 1 day at any time during the school year, which is also known as cumulative enrollment. Now, you might be wondering, how do we calculate at least 1 day suspended? CalPATS allows suspensions to be submitted in partial day increments. So, on the dashboard, students are counted as suspended if they are suspended at least 1 cumulative day. They are not counted as suspended if they have cumulative suspensions that add up to less than 1 day. Students suspended multiple times or for multiple days are only counted once in the rate calculation. It is important to note, however, that the suspension rate calculation includes both in-school and out-of-school suspensions. These are labeled in CalPATS in code 100 and 110. As a reminder, discipline incidents are submitted by LEAs. They are taken from the Student Incident, or SINC, and Student Incident Results, or SIRS, files submitted in end of year 3, or EOY 3. For most of the other state indicators, the desired outcome is to have a high percentage in the current year. We would see a high status level. However, for the suspension rate indicator, the desired outcome is reversed, and the goal is to achieve a low suspension rate. The color performance level are the same as the other indicators, with a red being the lowest performance level and blue being the highest. So, how will the suspension rate indicator appear on the dashboard this year? Much like other indicators, the baseball card with a color is returning indicator. This means it will have the colored banner across the top of the card, as well as performance level or color in the form of the gauge and the color explicitly written out as well. In this example, the gauge is pointing to the color green. Additionally, we will see the current year status listed here as 5.1% suspended, at least once. Next, the card indicates whether the status is changed from the year prior, with the example here showing that there was a decline of 4.3 percentage points. Finally, the equity report shows the number of student groups in each of the performance level or color for that particular school or LEA. In this example, 1 was in blue, 6 were in green, 1 in yellow, and 0 were in red or orange. This top-level report can assist schools and LEAs in looking at student group inequities that may be occurring. At the very bottom of the baseball cards, there is a link to view more details, which provides more specific student group information and trends in data over time when available. The suspension rate indicator is based on multiple distributions because the suspension data varies widely among local educational agency or LEA type, elementary, high, and unified, and school type, elementary, middle, and high. This means that there are 6 different sets of cut points. 1, 3 sets based on LEA type distributions, and 2, 3 sets based on school type distributions. Kindergarten through grade 12 or K through 12, schools use the Unified School District cut scores. Cut scores can be accessed on the CDE status cut scores for the 2023 dashboard. This link to this page is available in the note-taking guide. Most indicators strive for a very high graduation rate or very high performance on academic assessments. However, the goal of the suspension indicator is to achieve a low suspension rate and a decreased rate in change. Overall color performance levels remain the same, where a red color is the lowest performance level and the blue is the highest performance level, just like the other dashboard indicators. For a list of suspension status and change cut scores, please visit the link to the cut scores webpage, which can be found in your note-taking guide. The 5x5 table shows performance level, with the top row representing the change from prior year. The possible change levels are increased significantly, increased, maintained, decline, and decline significantly. The first column shows status indicating performance in current year. Status level include very low, low, medium, high, and very high. The intersection of change and status will give the performance level or color. In this example, 5x5 chart, to receive a blue performance level, an LEA, school, or student group would need one of the following combinations: status of very low and a change level of either maintain, decline, or decline significantly, or status of low and change level of decline significantly. To receive a green performance level, an LEA, school, or student group would need one of the following combinations: status of very low with a change of increased, or status of low with a change of maintained or a change of declined, or finally, status of medium with a change of decline or a change of decline significantly. To receive a yellow performance level, an LEA, school, or student group would need one of the following combinations: status of very low with a change of increased significantly, or status of low with a change of increased, or status of medium with a change of maintain, or status of high with a change of decline or a change of decline significantly, or finally, status of very high with a change of decline significantly. To receive an orange performance level, an LEA, school, or student group would need one of the following combinations: status of low with a change of increase significantly, or status of medium with a change of increase significantly, or change of increased, or status of high with a change of increased or a change of maintained, or finally, status of very high with a change of decline. Finally, an LEA, school, or student group would receive a red performance level with a status of high and change of increase significantly, or status level of very high and a change level of either increase significantly, increased, or maintained. Select LEAs and schools with small populations are more susceptible to large swings in results from year to year. To account for this, a 3x5 table is applied when N size is less than 150 at the LEA, school, and student group levels. The 3x5 tables remove both the increase significantly and decline significantly change levels from the performance level determinations and folds them into the increased and decline respectively. Therefore, small student populations will receive only one of three change levels for the suspension indicator. The change levels are increased, maintained, and decline. The 3x5 table shows performance level with the top row presenting the change, indicating the change from prior year. The possible changes are decline, maintained, and increased. The first column shows status indicating performance in current year. Status levels include very high, high, medium, low, and very low. The intersection of change and status will give the performance level or color. In this example, 3x5 table, to receive a blue performance level, an LEA, school, or student group would need one of the following combinations: status of very low and a change level of either maintained or change of decline. To receive a green performance level, an LEA, school, or student group would need one of the following combinations: status of very low with a change of increased, or status of low with a change of maintained or a change of decline, or status of medium with a change of decline. To receive a yellow performance level, an LEA school or student group would need one of the following combinations: status of low with a change of increased, or status of medium with a change of maintained, or status of high with a change of decline. To receive an orange performance level, an LEA school or student group would need one of the following combinations: status of medium with a change of increased, or status of high with a change of increased or a change of maintained, or status of very high with a change of decline. Finally, an LEA school or student group would receive a red performance level with a status level of very high and a change level of either increased or maintained. LEAs that did not certify their end of year 3 data in CalPADS in either the current or prior year will have their status level automatically assigned orange if they have 30 or more students cumulatively enrolled. LEAs submitted data for their schools as well, so the schools within the LEA will also be assigned orange. This rule has been applied across multiple dashboards. However, LEAs and their schools were automatically assigned the status level high in 2022 since colors were not available then. There have been a few changes to the suspension rate indicators since the 2022 dashboard. Like most of other indicators, we are moving from a status-only report to a color gauge performance level on the dashboard. In 2019, a 3x5 methodology was applied for small schools to reduce the big swings in change from year to year. It removed the increase significantly and decreased significantly change levels for schools with less than 150 students. In 2022, however, the dashboard was based on status only and no change, so no 3x5 methodology was applied. In 2023, with the return of change and colors, the 3x5 methodology will be applied to all districts, schools, and student groups with less than 150 students in the denominator. Finally, as we just talked about, the 2023 dashboard will be applying the automatic assignment of orange. Each year, LEAs can validate their suspension data prior to certification using CalPADS reports. Report 7.10 shows the summary results for the count of discipline incidents. Report 7.12 shows the student level data for the student list of discipline incidents. These reports are available starting in May and can be reviewed throughout the CalPADS end of year certification window. For more information on how to access these and other CalPADS reports to verify dashboard data, refer to the 2022-2023 handbook Connecting CalPADS to the Dashboard. Next, I'll be passing the baton back to Katrina to cover the differences between DataQuest and the dashboard.
Next, we'd like to cover some of the differences between DataQuest and the dashboard when it comes to the suspension rate. Many schools and LEAs use both DataQuest and the dashboard to understand their data. While both report suspension rates, there are differences in the way the data is calculated and reported. DataQuest reports suspensions of any length, while the dashboard only counts a student as suspended if they have a cumulative or aggregate count of at least one full day. Another difference between DataQuest and the dashboard is how data is reported for non-public schools or NPS schools. DataQuest includes data from these schools in the LEA reports, while the dashboard will include suspension data from NPS schools for students with disabilities with the District of Special Education for Accountability, or NPS data. Other NPS data will not be included in the LEA reports. DataQuest also includes charter schools in their district authorizers reports. There are filters available to include or exclude from the authorizers reports. However, the dashboard always has charter schools excluded from their authorizers results, since charter schools are considered LEAs for accountability purposes. One final difference we have between DataQuest and the dashboard is how students with disabilities are reported. On DataQuest, students with disabilities are reported at the district of attendance. On the dashboard, they're reported at the district of residence. This is described in the DSEA rules that will be coming shortly. Before we finish our presentation on the suspension rate indicator, let's cover a few frequently asked questions. For our first question, if a student transfers from one school to another, do the student suspensions follow the student from school to school? No. As with all state indicators, the data used for the dashboard are based on the data generated at each district or school. An LEA or school does not inherit another LEA or school's data. The only instance data are inherited by another LEA is with the application of the District of Residence Rule, or DSEA. Next up, one of my students was suspended for 5 full days. Are each of these suspension days counted in the suspension rate? No. The suspension rate is based on the number of students who were suspended at least 1 full day during the school year. In other words, a student who is suspended multiple days is only counted as suspended once. Irit, I'll pass it off to you to cover the next few questions.
Thank you, Katrina. For the next question, does the suspension rate for the dashboard only use out-of-school suspensions? And the answer is no. Both in-school and out-of-school suspensions are counted as suspensions in the rate. These are listed at Discipline Code 100 and 110. Expulsions, on the other hand, are not included in the suspension rate. Our final question is, how can I check or verify my suspension rate data? Discipline incidents or events committed by students are recorded by LEAs in the CalPAD. These discipline incidents are taken from the Student Incident, or SINC, and Student Incident Result, or SIRS, files. The base of students that determines the denominator of the suspension rate are those students who are cumulatively enrolled at the school or LEA. Enrollment data is taken from the CalPAD Student Enrollment, or SENR, file. All files are part of the CalPAD's end of Year 3 data collection and can be viewed in CalPAD's extracts. The handbook connecting to the dashboard to CalPAD reports linked in your note-taking guide. It can help direct you which extracts to pull as well. This is the end of our suspension rate specific information. If you need additional help, we've provided a few different resources with links in the note-taking guide. First, we have the suspension rate indicator webpage. It will take you from A to Z with everything you need to know about the suspension rate and has lots of links to flyers, CAT scores, or anything else you might need. On that page, you'll find a link to the 2023 technical guide, where we also have a suspension mini guide available. Once the dashboard has been released and the school dashboard additional reports webpage has been updated, districts and schools can find suspension rate data that is more specific than the data found on the dashboard. For example, you can find both the number and the percent of students counted as suspended. You can also find the number of students counted in the denominator and an easy way to compare results between schools or student groups. Katrina is going to finish up our presentation with some general review of the dashboard rules.
Thank you, Irit. Now let's walk you through some general rules about the dashboard. As a reminder, we have a special rule for charter schools. Since charter schools are treated as local education agencies, or LEAs, under the Local Control Funding Formula, or LCFF, their data are not included in their authorizer's dashboard report. This includes both direct and locally funded charters. We wanted to go through what the accountability N-size thresholds are and how they will be displayed on the 2023 dashboard. We'll use suspension rate as our example. If the N-size is 30 or more students in the denominator, then the suspension rate is reported on the dashboard along with the status and change from the prior year. In this sample card, the student group displays a blue performance level or color with the gauge pointing to the blue color and the blue along the top border. The card shows a suspension rate of 0% and a decline of 2% from the prior year. The number of students, or N-size, is 198. Additionally, any LEA, school, or student group with more than 30 students in the denominator is held accountable for differentiated assistance, DA, at the LEA level, and comprehensive support and improvement, or CSI, and additional targeted support and improvement, or ATSI, at the school level. If the N-size is between 11 and up to 29 students in the denominator, then only the suspension rate and change from the prior year is reported on the dashboard. In the second sample card, the student group displays no performance color with the grayed out gauge and a suspension rate of 0%. It also reports a decline of 8.7 percentage points from the year prior. The number of students, or N-size, is 25. Any LEA, school, or student group with 11 to 29 students in the denominator is not held accountable for DA at the LEA level or CSI/ATSI at the school level. If the N-size is less than 11 students in the denominator, then no data is reported on the dashboard to protect student privacy. In the third sample card, the student group displays no performance level with a grayed out gauge and no suspension rate. The number of students, or N-size, is 8. Any LEA, school, or student group with less than 11 students in the denominator is not held accountable for DA at the LEA level or CSI, ATSI at the school level. There are, however, N-size threshold exceptions to the rules that I just explained. They apply to the foster youth and homeless student groups, as their N-size thresholds are different at the LEA and school levels. At the district or LEA level, there must be 15 or more students in the denominator to be reported on the dashboard and held accountable. At the school level, there must be 30 or more students in the denominator to be reported on the dashboard and held accountable. For this exception, charter schools are treated as schools, not LEAs. Therefore, charter schools will need 30 or more students in the denominator for foster youth and homeless student groups to be held accountable. The District of Special Education Accountability, or DSEA rule, is applied to all available state indicators for students with disabilities, or SWDs, who receive special education services at another district or county office of education. These students will be sent back to the District of Residence, or DSEA, and included in the DSEA's dashboard. For example, the district where the student geographically resides is held accountable for the student's graduation outcomes, and that data is included in the District of Residence graduation rate indicator. Please note that this rule applies to LEAs only. All schools, including charter schools, are held accountable for all students with disabilities. This rule has been applied since the 2017 dashboard for the academic performance measures and the 2020 reporting of the graduation rate and CCI data on the CDE School Dashboard Additional Reports website. It was applied for all indicators starting on the 2022 dashboard and will continue for the 2023 dashboard and beyond. For more information, refer to the Changes to the District of Residence Rule for Students with Disabilities flyer on the Dashboard Communications Toolkit webpage. If those extra resources do not answer your remaining questions, as always, we are just an email away. As a reminder, our email is dashboard@cde.ca.gov. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter @CDE Dashboard. Thank you for watching this on-demand video about the suspension rate. Again, please contact us if you have any additional questions. Thank you.